Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Power Within podcast. My name is Trevor Evers. I'm your host. And this week we have on a fantastic guest. Her name is Aisling FitzGibbon. Now, Aisling is a modern medicine woman and holistic nutritionist, passionate about supporting women in the whole health journey to have the energy and vitality to create their vision. Aisling is the author of her new book, which is entitled Moving from Fear to Trust, which is a memoir and roadmap of facing your greatest fears of the unknown and discovering trust in following your highest vision. Sounds absolutely fantastic. And Aisling, it's great to have you on the show. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good, Trevor, and thank you so much. And it's so interesting how this book came about, actually from me coming to your conference back in 2018. And I was speaking all about evolving activism, moving away from fighting against the system to creating a new system and a new way of being. And after my talk, Dr. Mary Helen Hensley came up on the stage. I never saw her before, didn't know her name. And she said, every soul has a contract with each other, whether that's for 5 minutes or 50 years. And Martha, which is my mom, and Aisling had a contract to work together. And her death was her physical exit. But have no doubt that Martha is still working with Aisling from the other side. And when I heard those words, just this peace ran through my whole body. And I knew that was the reason why I was meant to go to that conference. And it was just fascinating to look back, because initially that conference was actually scheduled. Can you remember? It was actually for March of 2018.
That's right. That's right.
And we had the big frost and crazy weather.
The big fall of snow.
Yeah, big fall of snow.
Yeah.
And like Ireland just shuts down when that happens. So that was then rescheduled for the November. So in the March, my mom was actually still in a coma in the ICU in Cork. So there was no way that I was able to go in March. I wasn't able to even barely, get through the day. It was such an intense time.
Sure.
So then it was rescheduled for that November, and Mary Helen was just placed as the speaker after me, but she was never actually on the list for the March. So I look back and I go, I found that actually the little leaflet for the event this summer when I was cleaning out the attic, and I just said, oh wow, look at how the divine worked through all that and orchestrated all of this to come about. And I met Mary Helen the next day, and I said to her that one of the last things my mom said to me before she went into a coma, she sat up on the bed, her eyes were closed, and she said, I'm an eternal being, get in with the Americans. It was literally as clear as that. And I said, what do you mean? And then nothing, like there was no more conversation after that.
Right.
She wasn't really coherent. She was kind of like in a different world. And she ended up having a massive grand mal seizure the following day. So I told this story to Mary Helen, and she said, that's right, I'm the American and I'm here to help you. And you're going to be putting your story into a book. And I promised your mom that I'm going to help you, which she did. And so a few months later, I went up to Mary Helen into her home, and she asked me, what's the name of the book? And I said, it's Moving from Fear to Trust. And so we started the journey together, and I started writing it in January of 2019. So it just all feels like this incredible synchronicity. So I'm really just blown away by the whole story, and really excited for people to hear this and read this, because this is what's available for everybody, this level of guidance. And I love the name of your podcast, because it really is the power within. It's that divine self that's within all of us, and we're being called now to actually turn inward so that we can create a whole new reality on earth.
Brilliant. Excellent. And no, myself and yourself, we met quite a long time ago, didn't we, on this journey? And we've connected a couple of times along the way. And it's great to have you on the podcast, because, it's another time that we've connected, and we're on the same wavelength. Our journeys are very, very similar. And congratulations on the new book. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's I have a little copy of it here for you to see. Yeah, so I had that all done just before I gave birth to Rian, who was born last April. And again, that was a huge initiation into moving from fear to trust. Because really it's about, the message is not just about moving out of fear. It's actually about being able to have the courage to face into the unknown, whether that's reclaiming your health, whether that's starting a new business, whether that's changing direction in the way that you're living. And for me, you know, the birth of Rian, I really went into the unknown because I had a home birth at home. And any woman who's gone through that initiation, it's a portal to really understand on a very physiological level the divinity that's within your body, like within you. And that power is meant to be activated at that time. And so I really went through that portal, and I share that in the book. And I feel as a society, we've been conditioned to fear the unknown and to cling to the known.
Yeah.
And then, you know, similarly in our journeys, you know, we both got involved in activism. And again, that's fighting against the known. And that's not where change comes. It can only come when we actually surrender and open to the unknown and allow that change to come through us and emerge into the physical world. And that's where our power lies. And that's where our focus needs to be at this time, when we're in, you know, this transition phase where the old systems are dying and there's so much chaos happening. But we're not to get sucked into that. We have to turn inward and be able to create what is the real, what is the organic way of living, and bringing that into our physical daily lives. And that's really the message of my story, because yeah, I was called onto this path since I was born, really. When I look back, you know, I've been prepared for this time. My mom was preparing this time, you know, from the very, very beginning. And I think it's so important because people's energy and focus is their number one asset. And you know, the world is constantly pulling you out of your center. So having this conversation today is really a reminder to take ownership of your own life and your own self. Yeah, to pull away from what's not in resonance and to give your all of your life force energy into what we are creating, what you are creating.
Sure.
And that's where your power lies. And that is, I suppose, a daunting journey, because it involves facing the unknown, and it involves facing yourself and maybe the aspects of yourself that you have ran away from, or you haven't faced. And for me, the biggest fear is actually the fear of my own power. That's what I've discovered in this journey.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's what it actually comes down to, because again, we've been conditioned out of that. And that's just like an overlay, a program overlay. And so the journey of moving from fear to trust is just removing that and realizing, oh wow, I actually am a creational being. And I have so much more capacity within myself than I even imagine. So
absolutely, the power within, isn't it? I mean, we do create our own realities, and we are, to a great extent, what we focus on, what we think about, what we give our energy to. And that, to me, is very important, to take that responsibility for your own health and happiness, and to live a joyful life, because that's where it's at for me. I know it's a similar case for you as well with your book, and this is part of the reason I'm doing this podcast here as well. So it's great to have you on and to hear your story. And you've come such a long way from where you were before to where you are now. Would you like to talk a little bit about that journey and where you were before in comparison to, and what were the triggers to help you make that shift?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I suppose the first thing was, the first awakenings happened for me when I was 23. So that's like, a long time ago now. And that was a health crisis. So when I was 19, I ended up going to a doctor because I felt exhausted and I felt depressed and anxious. And I felt, okay, I need to get a tablet. So I went on medication for 4.5 years. But during that time, this kind of voice kept speaking and kind of guiding me. And you know, eventually I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't be on medication. I need to, you know, take my own health back into my own hands. And that opened up, I suppose, that first wave of the journey, which was learning to heal my own body and going into the unknown, because I had trained as an occupational therapist. So I had a very kind of mapped out life path in terms of my career. But once I started to heal and feel my energy and my life force coming back, just this very clear vision landed that I was here to assist other people with their health and to be able to come out of the old way. So all of this kept coming in, and I had this vision of a retreat center and bringing this awareness and wisdom to other people's lives. Then I got involved in the activism world. So again, I was waking up to all of the issues in the world in terms of the water, in terms of food, the air quality, all the different aspects that are out there. And I was very much in that victimization where I felt I wanted to fight against the government, fight against the way the systems are. And I felt like if I fought hard enough that I would create that change. So I did that for many years. And then I realized, both my mum and I, actually, we had a big event in Whelan's, and both of us just broke down crying the night, on the way to the event. And we just said, we can't stop, we can't keep fighting. And then I had a conversation with my friend Kira, who's a seer and a mystic. And she said to me, there's another way. And she reminded me of the universal law, which is you strengthen, which you oppose. So what you resist persists. And so I went on a shamanic retreat with her then, a little while later. And that opened the door then to this whole inner journey and learning all about metaphysics and how the reality is created and how the artificial matrix has been created. And then I discovered, okay, my true power, my true position is actually to be in a leadership role of creating the new and living that in my own life, and then opening the invitation to those who are in residence, who wish to journey along with me and wish to co-create together. And that's been my focus and my mission since 2018. After my mom passed away, I was just I knew that there's no longer any value in me fighting, because that's not my position. It was definitely a part of my journey, and it was all valid at the time, but it was going through the stages of awakening, and it's kind of coming out of that victimization that the outside is an opposite to you, and realizing that the environment is actually an expression of you. And so once you get into that level of consciousness, then you're accessing your divine self, your God consciousness, which is that you are an instrument and a facet of the divine, in physical form. And for me then it was discovering, what is it that I bring, like what is my medicine? And that message of moving from fear to trust just came through so strongly, because I feel it's a message for this time to assist in those who are ready to cross over into the new paradigm. And in order to let go of the old, we have to be able to enter the unknown. And that brings up fear, because we've been seeing life as an opposite to us. So going into the unknown, it just brings so much visceral fear. So we avoid it. So now it's actually that fear, we need to move through that fear, because the unknown is actually an extension of us that we have not yet discovered. So I'm sure you feel like this yourself, like say, for example, with this podcast, when you first start off, you can feel the fear running through your body, the adrenaline. You don't feel steady in your nervous system, your psyche, you're worried about maybe what people are thinking, or where is this going, what's going to be the outcome. But actually, once you move through that, you realize, no, like you are being called, like there is this blueprint there for you to live into. And when you move through that and into the trust of like, oh, actually you can start seeing it landing in the physical, then the trust starts to build in your vision, and you're able to continuously move into new areas of the unknown, because it's not a one-time event. It's going to be a continuous, especially if you're on the forefront. We all have different positions, but I feel my role, and I feel similarly with your role, is that we're on the forefront of kind of like pushing out and bringing this in, and being a way shower to kind of give people, okay, yes, the current of the mainstream is flowing in this way, but actually there's another way that we can go that's actually the organic way, like what's the real way. And the more of us that actually are able to do that and broadcast that out into the collective field and send out that reminder to those who have that same resonance, the more that that's going to start building and actually developing into new systems and new ways and new innovations of how we're living, and kind of returning back to our true essence and our natural state of being, in harmony with nature. And so I feel like that's the transition that we're in, and it's going to take as long as it takes. It's going to take decades or more to unfold. So it's about really just learning to trust in the process and trust in what is it that you're being called to do right now, so that it's going to be part of this bigger picture of bringing in this massive shift of this new paradigm onto Earth.
Sure, and it's a great place to be when you reach the other side and get to where you are now, isn't it? I know from like doing this podcast, I definitely looked at it as an opportunity for me to express my own personality and be congruent. It's about following your heart and following your intuition, and what you said there is the nail on the head. Because from the other place, I know from experience, it's a very frustrating place to be, and it comes with a lot of anger. And it's not, I don't feel, for me, and this is my experience, it wasn't a healthy place to be mentally, and because it does encourage that playing the victim, and a sense of, I suppose, paranoia as well, and it's only when you kind of go through that and you see and you take a step back from it and you be more objective. And thankfully I done that over the last couple of years and give myself the time to kind of like process that. And like this podcast is a result of that.
I think that it's actually, I feel called to read a part from what you just shared there, because I think this is going to speak to a lot of people. So I said, Kira had said, she told me that universal law, that you strengthen what you oppose. And when I went on that inward journey and discovery, that was started in 2014, of learning about metaphysics and how everything is created, and all the different universal laws. So that's a very real one. You strengthen what you oppose. So
yeah,
for me at the time it was fluoride. So I wrote that fluoride was once regarded as a cosmetic, then a medicine, then a food grade substance. So every time we started fighting against it, they started changing. It's like the hall of mirrors. It just starts, all this distortion is just constantly moving. The more we push, the more those who are backing this winning horse close ranks and push back. It's a classic mirror distortion. The more we vilified, the more they had the opportunity to glamorize their products in the spotlight. Already accepted by the general public as something that was good for them, it caused people to fight back for something they believed in, even though most couldn't tell you why. Cognitive dissonance at its finest. Rather than fight against what you don't want, focus your energy on creating what you want. Instead of fighting against fluoride, focus on what creates health and embody this in your life. That's where your true power lies and requires you to take full responsibility and conscious leadership. So that was my massive metamorphosis of understanding, and that was the initiation that I was to move through with that journey, to actually really be a guide at this time, because again, energy is our number one asset. Where we're directing our life force energy, we're either opposing life and we're resisting the flow, or we are, feeding into what we don't want, or we're actually putting our energy into what we are wanting to create and establishing that. And it's not that you're doing it on your own as like one person making it happen. It's that you're aligning with the will of the divine that you are an expression of. And as you start expressing that into your reality, like what you're doing with the podcast, like what I've done with the book, you're actually bringing it from the unseen into the seen, making it into physical. And then, you're actually creating a new reality in your life. And I think more of us are being called into that, and we are all connected. We're all connected in the field, and we all have our various roles to play. So this is a reminder to those who are maybe in that space where, you know, you're seeing what you don't want, or you're seeing how life events are unfolding, to just know that you have the power to create a new story.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we need to be working from a place of joy and power. It's like the title of this podcast, The Power Within, and connecting with our own power. Because a lot of the stuff, like the activist stuff especially, does pull you away from that because of the anger and the frustration, and, you know, focusing ultimately on things that you can control. And that was big learning for me, to go, right, okay, from this moment on, I'm focusing on what I can control and not what I can't. And we do create our own reality and the power of our thoughts. I know that in the work that I do. It's like when we get up in the morning, we set the intention for how the day is going to go. We set up the blueprint to create our own reality each and every day. So we have the power to do that. And the more, you know, you're shaking we shake our fist in the air and protest and give out. And, you know, there's a lot of doom and gloom out there, as we know. That's just adding into that whole toxic mix, isn't it? But it's important to have that, as you said, that knowledge and wisdom to know what actually creates meaningful change. Because if you put our energy to something that we don't like, we don't want, you know, the universe is going to throw more of that back at us, isn't it? You become what you fight.
Yeah, exactly. And because I remember just like that, I felt at the end of the campaign, when it was coming to a close, that I was siphoning off my life force energy into this. You know, I was actually giving my power over to the thing that I wanted to get rid of. I was actually handing over my life force, my power, to them. And when you realize that, you go, well, I can't keep doing that, because that's not the world that I want to be living. And, you know, I realized my power was to actually help create that change. And so I started up Ashling Health School. That was in 2018.
Brilliant.
And so that was guiding mostly women, but men also would come sometimes, to reclaim their health and their energy, and, you know, with nutrition and with everything holistically, like with supporting your body with self-care and all those things. And so in that, like, in that way, I was not opposing anything, but people would come into my space, and naturally, you know, as you start taking care, the consciousness around water and all that would be part of that conversation. And so it would be a natural, you know, organic process. So I wasn't having to oppose anything. It was actually just bringing that into the awareness, into the field, and that creates meaningful change, because then those individuals go off and live in that way and share that with their family, and, you know, on it goes. You know, it's like those seeds of awareness grow in their own way, in their own pace.
That's right, because the receiver of message has to be ready to receive it.
Yeah.
You know, there's no point in, you know, wasting your energy on something that's, you know, it's just going to end up in frustration. And
yeah, like I was what I was doing, you see, was I was imposing my will on life. I was saying, you, all of you all need to wake up now, this minute. And I actually had a conversation during COVID times with a lady who heard of me in the Girl Against Fluoride campaign. And she had said to me that she just wasn't ready to even hear it or receive that message at that time. And then maybe 4 years later, you know, she was ready to hear it. And I just realized, oh, wow, yeah, it's like because you have to create something beyond what the current model or, you know, current mainstream life is. You might call it the matrix, whatever way you want to say it, but it's like, it has to be beyond that. It has to be in the, you know, it has to be outside of that.
Sure.
And then those who are ready, and it's like a natural, you know, full body, yes, they want to go in that direction. It's like opening for them, and they're completely on the journey themselves. then it's just like there's no resistance. It's just like a natural invitation, and it's like a natural flow. It's like organic unfolding. And so I know now, that my role is going to be, over many decades to come, it's being that beacon and being able to guide people through this process with, for me, the health is like the area that I'm most passionate about supporting. So yeah, for me, is that understanding that like energy is your currency, and for us to master that at this time is so important, because at any given moment we can be pulled out of our center and pulled away from who we are. And so my book is really that message of coming home to yourself and being able to create a practice in your life that you are attuning back to yourself and what it is that you want to create. And when you do that, I think it's like you're flowing on this lovely pathway that just feels so life affirming. I think maybe you're feeling the same with what you're creating. It's just like I'm following this pathway. And so for me, I've had to really, like, my mind has been, has had to really relax into this journey and this process, because I had Rian last year, then we went out touring in Europe, so we were totally in the unknown, going around Germany and Switzerland and
great adventure, huh?
Denmark in the camper van, massive adventure. And again, that was another initiation into moving from fear to trust, to really like let go into the bigger picture, because it's like my ego mind can't see all the steps or how it's all going to come together. But it's like I'm being given the directives if I actually trust in it and then show up and take the action. And so even like bringing this book through, it's like I'm constantly feeling this pathway, and then to actually have the ability to surrender fully to that and to go, do you know what? I can't see the whole journey or the whole path, but I can feel what it is. And then when you can let go into that, then it's like, then you are a total conduit for this divine come through you. And we're all being called at this time. Not everyone is going to go on this journey, obviously, but there's so many of us around the world that are. And yeah, let these words be a reminder. And moving from fear to trust, a big part of this, which I've been talking about, and I mentioned this in one of the chapters, I talk about how important it is to tend to the nervous system, because when you're in fear, your nervous system is in fight or flight. It's
yeah, that's right.
It's activated, so it's like your brain, you go into survival mode, you go into like hyper arousal, and you're in that kind of state of like the outside is a threat, and that's what's happening when you're feeling fear. And so it's just bringing that awareness that when you're going into the unknown, that fear can come up and it's natural, but that you can actually choose to trust. You can choose to lean into like the rest and repair parasympathetic nervous system, which makes you feel safe in your body. So even if you're in the unknown and you're going through that journey right now, which so many of us are, that you're able to cultivate safety in your body. And so that you can do that, so that you actually are regenerating your energy. You're not draining your energy with when you're in fear. And for nutrition, like, your nervous system is electrical. So I don't know, would you get cravings like when you're stressed? A lot of people would crave things like salty foods. Yeah. So your body actually needs a lot of mineral salts, and especially at this time when we're really being activated to come into this, our nervous system needs to be fueled with lots of mineral salts. So things like leafy greens, especially raw leafy greens, and celery, lemons, cucumbers, lemon added to water. All these things will actually give mineral salts to your body. Right. And you need that to feed the nervous system. And when you're feeding that and hydrating, that creates that sense of safety and trust in your body. And when you're in that state, then you're connected to your divine self and you can hear it. Whereas when you're in fear and you're contracted and you're dehydrated, or you're not nourishing yourself in the right way, then you're not as able to tune into that. So it's very important to realize, like, your body is the instrument, and you have to nurture yourself so that you can actually hear the messages that you're getting, and then be able to have the strength and energy to take the action. Sure.
I call it, it's being in balance, isn't it? with yourself, with your mind and body. You know, that's the way I refer to that. That if I'm out of balance, if I'm not looking after myself, or getting a little bit of stress about stuff you shouldn't be getting stressed about, then you do feel that you're a little bit out of balance. And when that happens, you're not tuned into the power within yourself. You're being disconnected from that. So that's different. There's different ways of reconnecting with that power. And know that you're very into the nutritional part of it. And that's fantastic, because we are what we eat and what we drink. And to be mindful of that, especially in the world that we live in, like we're bombarded with 100 types of crap in the supermarkets everywhere we look, and it can be a little bit of a minefield to kind of get the right foods and drinks into our body, can't it?
Absolutely. But for me, it's really simplifying everything down and really coming back to the basics. So yeah, nutrition is such a huge part of that. But also it's how you're taking care of yourself holistically as well. Like your sleep. For me, I haven't had like a proper full night's sleep since I think it was when I was 7 months pregnant. After that, you're up and down with a baby. But sleep, being able to create rest in your life, your breath work is so important. And I know so many amazing breath work practitioners now. But again, like all of us have this similar aim of bringing us back into alignment in our body, and being able to be centered and grounded. Because when we're out of our body, we're not rooted into our power.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the game of mastery here, because the world is set up to pull you out. So you actually have to intentionally and actively choose to come back home to yourself and cultivate your life in a way that you're able to minimize those distractions as much as possible, and to create a life that is tuning you back in. So for me, like, time in nature is essential. It's so part of all this, and just being with stillness and as you say, away from so much media and things like that. You have to be so careful with what you're consuming, because everything is a frequency. And
absolutely.
just bringing awareness to the whole picture.
I don't watch the mainstream media, and even if it comes on in the car, I just turn it off, listen to my CDs. I'm old school that way, folks. When I go to play music, it's on physical media, So, but music is great for the soul and great for the spirit, which is why I absorb in the music in my downtime, just to keep it that high vibrational state, because nutrition is so important. But for me, it is how we're thinking to ourselves, the thoughts we're giving ourselves, and being in our power in that joyful state. Because once we're in that place, then we're much more likely to look after ourselves nutritionally. When we're stressed out and we're anxious and we're not in a good place, that's the time where there is a chance you might say, "Oh, I saw it here. Give me that bag of crisps," or whatever, But so it is something that I think is neglected. People that you see, I see an awful lot out there on social media about nutrition and the different types of foods and drinks that we need to be putting into our bodies, and the minerals and vitamins and all that stuff, which is all great. But at the same time, it's a balance, because it needs to be both. Like when you're in a good mindset and when you're in a good place and when you're living a joyful life, then you're happy within yourself and connected to your power, then you're much more likely to look after yourself in terms of what you're eating and what you're drinking. So I think it's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because for me, like, the first stage of my journey was really coming into like nutrition and taking care of my body and detoxing out medications, all this kind of stuff. And but then the emotional body started to come through. So really, like what you're saying, it really is a multi-dimensional approach. It's not just one one dimension. It's not just one aspect. But it's about bringing all of our bodies into alignment. So it's like our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, our, you know,
That's right.
we've got many more, like light bodies, and you know how we're connected to the our whole field.
And it all needs work, doesn't it?
It all
We
needs
need
work.
to be proactive and looking after ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, because like if you just focus on one, let's say physically, you might go to the gym a couple of times a week, but if you're neglecting all the rest of it, then you know you're going to end up with an issue. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes you can you know, because oftentimes we feel so out of control, and we think, you know, if we control one area. So for me it was like, oh well, I don't feel well, so I'm going to control the nutrition. But it was actually done through a mental lens of like, I don't accept myself. I actually hate myself because I'm like this, you know. So I actually had this undercurrent of self-hatred that I actually had to uncover and realize that that wasn't promoting any healing or nurturing to my being. And so I had to get to a stage where, you know, I wasn't recovering because I was doing all the things physically, but I was in this inner battle with myself. So I had to come into a place of deep acceptance of where I was and let go of the attachment to the outcome. And I'm actually in a new phase with that right now, because I'm in an unknown phase, and I can, you know, and I felt the same internal struggle coming up that I had back in 2010. I'm like, oh, you know, I want to be where I want to be, you know, in terms of the outcome, in terms of like establishing my life's work. And I have such a big vision of what that is. And then being able to accept where I am right now. So I'm brought back to the same lessons, which I share inside the book. And I think that's, you know, learning to accept where you are, and also being able to trust in the higher picture, the higher vision that's calling you, and then be able to release the attachment to the outcome. And then and only then can you fully be in the present moment and actually go, okay, what is it that I actually need to do right now? And then, you know, the mind can relax and the mind can still, and can actually receive the guidance and actually take that action.
And you've come so far in your journey, and I know that your mother, your mom, would be so proud of you. And I've met her once or twice many years ago. She was a fantastic lady, and I'm sure she's beside you, so proud of you and how far you've come on your journey.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, she was really preparing me for this time, you know, the way she brought me up, and just how she kind of cultivated our relationship as mother and daughter. And, you know, I've got so many messages from her. Even when she passed, I had a very strong dream, a very strong, like vivid message when I woke up, which was, you know, you can't connect to me in form, only in formlessness. So it's like, you know, she left her physical body, but she is, you know, everywhere. She's in the formlessness, which is, again, it's the unknown, the unseen.
Yeah.
And being able to trust in that has been such a huge part of that, and being able to release the fear around death, that death is the end and final, but actually it's just, you know, it's a part of our experience. And it's
like getting out of one car and into another.
Yeah, you're just leaving the physical shell or form that you've been inhabiting, but like you're actually continuing on. And she's shown that to me over and over again. And like Mary Helen gave the most incredible foreword, and just how Mary Helen got that message from my mom at the Open Minds conference on the stage. She said she could hear, you know, my mom came through and to her and gave that message. And when she was speaking, you know, she said, I was delivering your mom's message.
Wow.
So yeah, you know, that was
amazing.
Like, this is for real. And I suppose it's like Mary Helen had said that to me. She said, you'd never have understood this or known this or been able to bring this through without having my mom's physical passing, you know, because before that it would have been just like the biggest fear ever, because we're so locked into like our senses and how, you know, this is all I can see, this is all there is, but actually there's so much more to existence. And so I feel like that message will help to unlock so much fear around death, but also fear around the unknown. That there is no end, there is no, like, we're always being held. We're always being held, and that we're coming home to that now. And we all have our different pathways, like with you, with your work, it's like we all have different pathways that we're drawn to, but ultimately we're all coming back home to our divinity.
I know how close you are to your mother, and it was a beautiful message to hear from Mary Helen in that moment. And since then, you've had Rian, and how much has he been a part of the move from fear to trust?
Oh my gosh, like so much so. From his the pregnancy with Rian, I had what's called like a wild pregnancy. I don't know if you've ever heard the term.
No, never heard of it.
Basically there's no interference, there's no testing, there's no I didn't have any medical provider. It was just me, my body, and Rian, and nurturing my body and just completely entering into the mystery.
Wow.
And then the same with the birth. He was born at home, just myself and Richie, and that was like a massive portal into the unknown, and him teaching me to like trust in him and trust in the process of birth and how my body is designed to physiologically birth. And it was incredible to just like let go and surrender. My mind was fighting a little bit at one stage in the birth, and being able to then surrender to that, I was just like, okay, this is where it's at now, just surrendering. And I think being able to steward him and his life, it's going to be, and it is, a continuous journey of moving from fear to trust, because he's come in with his specific role, and I know that it's going to be maybe different, and people might be saying, oh, it needs to be this way, but I actually hold a vision for who he is. So he is my biggest teacher of moving from fear to trust. And even it was so funny, because the last day I was like, I had this cup printed up which is says moving from fear to trust. I don't know if you can see it, it's probably backwards there.
I like it.
And
I love it.
It was just so funny. I was holding Rian and I was breastfeeding him, and he was pointing at the cup, and he kept pointing at moving, and then kept pointing at trust. And I was just like, lads, this is hilarious. Your man's like, moving, trust. It was almost like he was picking up how I was feeling, and he was like pointing at the words trust. So I think so many children are coming through at this time to be able to catalyze this, and
absolutely. And we learn more from them than they do from us in many ways. As you know, I have two, Emma and Owen. They're 10 and 8 now, and I've got so much wisdom from them, because they're more closer to the source, if you like.
Yeah.
Like than us adults, we can be dragged away from it as we grow up, can't we?
Yeah. Oh, children are such a beautiful reminder of that truth, and that wonder that we can sometimes get disconnected from. So yeah, he's incredible, but he's also like moving into that threshold of becoming a mother, and same for you becoming a father. It's like no longer are your actions just for you, like you're stewarding another human's life. And so that in itself is calling me to move through the fears, because I want to be able to turn around to him when he's 18, 19, 20. We're having these kind of conversations, and actually demonstrate to him, like, this is what I moved through, this is what I was able to create, and then be able to pass on the baton to him, like, what is it that you want to create, and what is it that you are here to be, and for him to be able to have that unbelievable inner knowing and trust in himself. To me, that's the greatest gift to be able to pass on as my legacy.
Wonderful, brilliant. Aisling, it's been fantastic having you on the show, and I've been so absorbed in the conversation and the information that you've shared with us here today. Is there any parting words of wisdom you would like to share with myself and our listeners before you say goodbye today?
I would say that to trust in what is calling you and in your power to create it, and that whatever fears are emerging, whatever is showing up, that you have the courage to move from fear to trust every single time.
Brilliant. Words of wisdom. Aisling, thanks very much. I really appreciate you coming on the show here and taking the time to do so.
Delighted. And my book, if anyone's interested, I have a free workshop, which is called Moving from Fear to Trust Workshop. And that's available for everybody who buys a copy of Moving from Fear to Trust, which is out now on my website, aislingfitzgibbon.com.
Brilliant. And I'll link all the everything, all of those links in the description when I'm sharing the podcast here as well. Aisling, thanks very much. Take care of yourself. Rian, bye-bye. He's probably asleep there now, is he?
He's still sound. He slept through the whole podcast, which is great timing.
Right, you sound asleep.
Yeah.
Aisling, it's great to connect with you again. And look, have a great day, great week, and keep up the great work, and best of luck with your book.
Thanks a million, Trevor. Delighted to be here. And thanks a million for having me on as a guest.
You're very welcome. Okay, folks, it's that time again to say goodbye. Be good to yourself, be good to each other. And until the next podcast, take care of yourselves.